Hi, welcome to my channel. This is Russ, also known as Brother Possum, and this is Possum. I just wanted to take a minute today to talk to you about something I have here. This is it's a model of a 1950s, like a Chevy pickup of some sort, but that's not really what it is. It's actually a telephone, an old uh, novelty telephone. It's got the buttons here in front where you push buttons. It's even set up so you could use it for a rotary phone and just talk on it like this and just chit chat away. And it had a place for an actual cord down here, so you plug it into the handset on the desk or table wherever you would have it, and you just make phone calls, talk like a normal person. Again, that's just kind of an old timey uh, telephone they had at one time that one of my kids got for me. What we have here is an actual modern telephone. Actually, this is an outdated one that doesn't even work anymore, but I just have it around because I don't know what else to do with it. I don't want to throw it away. But that just gives you a little bit of an inkling into how much phones have changed over the years. In fact, I remember so far back, I remember before our family even had a telephone in the house, we used to have to go to the little town 2 or 3 miles away to the gas station grocery store that the Scotts had over in Fairfield. And I had a payphone there. And I remember going over there with my dad when he had to make a phone call to somebody. Anytime they had to make a phone call anywhere, they had to go to that gas station to use the payphone. And my dad hated that because he always said invariably when he would go in there and try to make a phone call, there were always people hanging out because it's kind of a general store, and that's where the guys would hang out. And he felt that every time he tried to talk on the phone, that's when they would start a real loud conversation and disrupt him and his phone call. He just never did learn to like that, but they didn't have a phone at the house. So when me and my brother started school, my dad decided enough was enough, that we had to have a telephone in the house. And I remember the day they brought the wires out and hooked them up and mounted the telephone to the wall. Back at that time, we had one telephone in the house that was mounted on the wall, had the handset with a rotary dial, and then the mouthpiece that you would put up to your ear and talk into it. And as we boys got older and started wanting to talk to girls specifically, we didn't want to have those conversations right there in the family living room with everybody listening. We'd have to step outside and shut the door. And my dad just thought that was the funniest thing in the world every time we'd take a phone call out on the front porch, especially if it was nasty cold weather. But that was the life we had, and we had to just deal with it. So we did. Another one of the characteristics of the phone system we had back at that time was nobody had a private line. It was everybody was on a party line. And the party line was pretty much what it sounds like. There would be a group of neighbors, usually neighbors fairly close together, and they would just run one line in and then attach all the different phones in the neighborhood to it. And the party line, every phone had their own little ring. We were actually advanced enough that our phone would only ring when it was our call. But if it was somebody else's phone ringing, the phone would still make kind of a grumbling noise, and you could hear the phone ring. And people would were notorious for waiting until the person that was receiving the call would pick up, and then they would pick up. Then whoever was in the house that wanted to listen to their conversation would pick up the handset and listen to it and eavesdrop on their conversation, basically. And that was how a lot of gossip got spread. And I've heard a story that once upon a time, one person was listening on somebody else's conversation, and the person that had the original call said, "Well, I do believe I hear such and such person listening to this call," and the person that was listening in, and they announced on the phone, "No, that's not them." And so they just kind of busted into the conversation. But, those things happen. Pardon me, I'm having a little sip with Ooga Booga here today. My son got that cup for me, and so I like to use it. Anyway, my uncles were on the farm next door. Actually, it was the same farm that we lived on. So consequently, we were on the same party line. And we would get different calls and talk to each other once in a while. But we didn't talk on the phone all that much unless it was just something really necessary. Back in those days, it was like you didn't talk on the phone unless it was necessary. And you didn't make a long distance phone call unless the hay baler was broke or a cow was having a calf or there was some other real legitimate emergency. So we didn't talk on the phone that much. But I had an old uncle that lived down in the log house where they were all, he and his brothers and sisters were all born. And after they got the phone in, he would like to talk to his sisters once in a while. He had a sister that lived about 20 miles away, and he was talking to her one day, and she was listening. She was talking, and then he got real quiet, and she started asking him if he was there, and he had not hung up the phone or said goodbye or anything. So she got worried. She was afraid he was maybe having some kind of medical problem. So she hung up her phone, called her other sister that lived closer. She was only about 10 miles away, and said, like, you need to go check on Buis. I don't think he's not answering on his phone. I'm worried about him. So Rena, the sister that lived closer, drove down, and as soon as she walked through the front door of the house, she saw what the problem was. The problem was that my Uncle Buis had stretched out on the couch listening to his sister talk on the phone, got in a nice warm sunshine afternoon, and fell asleep and was laying there on the couch just snoring away when his sister walked in and woke him up. And then she had to call the other sister back and let her know that Buis was okay and everything was fine. He was just taking a little nap, but that's just the way life was back then. It was funny because my Aunt Rena was the last one in the family to get a telephone, and that was in the late 60s, early 70s, I guess, probably. And when she and her husband got their phone put in their house, they had it put in the living room, and they refused to talk about anybody in the room where the phone was because they were convinced that even when the phone was hung up, it was still listening to them. And I guess they were just ahead of their time as far as maybe what an Alexa might be doing. So anyway, phones have evolved and they're a lot different now. So that story and many others like it are in my book that I have published. It's available on Amazon, Becoming Brother Possum. There's that story and quite a few other interesting and funny stories about life growing up on the farm. I appreciate it if you'd check it out. Again, that's Becoming Brother Possum, available on Amazon.com. Please hit subscribe and like at the bottom, and I'll talk to you again. Thank you.